Hello, you're watching France 24. It's 8 a.m. here in Paris. Let's get you up to date with our headlines. Former British politicians braced for the Chilcot Report, a 12-volume result of 7 years of inquiry into the Iraq invasion in 2003. Fired up and ready to go, President Obama rallies support for Hillary Clinton, who the FBI have recommended sparing from criminal charges over her emails. And Paralympian Oscar Pistorius awaits sentencing later today. His 5-year prison term is expected to be increased by a judge in South Africa. Hello to you. This is today's Live from Paris. I'm Belle Lupton. Coming up, Brexit turmoil returns to the markets as the pound slumps to its lowest level in 31 years. We'll have more in our business update. And if you can't make it to Western France this summer to visit all those beautiful chateaux and the artwork inside them, they could soon be coming to you. We'll be telling you how. Thanks for being with us here on France 24. Now, it's taken 7 years, 2.6 million words, a cost of over 12 million euros, and even the death of one of the people on the committee from old age. But the Chilcot Report on the run-up to the Iraq war is set to be released in the UK in the next few hours. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair is expected to face severe criticism, but the inquiry won't rule on whether the invasion was legal or not, as Luke Schrago reports.
It was 2009. Prime Minister Tony Blair had stepped down 2 years previously, and an inquiry into the controversial 2003 invasion and subsequent occupation of Iraq was getting underway. Its driving spark were the bereaved of troops who'd gone to war with poor equipment.
We will, therefore, be considering the United Kingdom's involvement in Iraq, including the way decisions were made and actions taken, to establish as accurately and reliably as possible what happened, and to identify the lessons that can be learned.
No one realised just how long that would take. From initial estimates of a year, the Chilcot Report has taken 7, longer than British military involvement in Iraq itself, at a cost of more than £10 million. Many delays stemmed from arguing over what could be published out of correspondence between Blair and US President George W. Bush, and the need to give public figures under fire time to respond to criticism. That was always unlikely to help the former British leader, who's seen his reputation all but collapse over his conviction Baghdad possessed weapons of mass destruction ahead of the invasion, weapons that were never found.
Maybe there's a bit more information about exactly what Blair promised to Bush in advance. But I think it's already clear that the Prime Minister made promises to the American President significantly in advance of going to the House of Commons on the issue about Britain's commitment to helping the Americans in this effort, should it take place.
An effort that left over 100,000 Iraqis dead after years of insurgency and conflict. The 2.6 million word Chilcot Report, though, isn't delving into whether the invasion was legal. It never had the support of the UN Security Council before troops went in after all. But it could well form the basis for future legal action against Tony Blair and his ministers, something that many in the UK have long called for.
Well, the day before the report's release, Sir John Chilcot spoke about the aims of the inquiry that he's led for the last 7 years.
The main expectation that I have is that it will not be possible in future to engage in a military or indeed a diplomatic endeavour on such a scale and of such gravity without really careful challenge, analysis and assessment and collective political judgment being applied to it.
Sir John Chilcot speaking there, the head of the UK inquiry into Britain's role in the Iraq war. And staying in the UK, the shockwaves of the UK's vote to leave the EU almost 2 weeks ago are continuing to make themselves felt. After David Cameron's announcement that he will step down as Prime Minister in a matter of months, the ruling Conservative Party is voting on his successor. The first round has taken place with Home Secretary Theresa May comfortably in the lead, as Laurent Berstecker explains.
Of 5 candidates to succeed David Cameron, only 3 remain.
65. Therefore, Dr. Liam Fox, having the lowest number of votes, has been eliminated from the ballot.
The former defense minister became the first to bow out of a race to decide who will lead the Conservative Party and become the country's de facto prime minister.
Naturally, I'm disappointed not to progress further, but I do not regret standing in this contest. I felt it was vital to stress the importance of national security in this debate and the need for a clear path to our exit from the European Union.
The favourite going into the polls, Interior Minister Theresa May opened up a commanding lead with 165 votes. And in second place, Junior Energy Minister Andrea Leadsom received 66 votes, making it increasingly likely that Britain could see its first woman Prime Minister since Margaret Thatcher. Trailing behind with 48 votes, Justice Minister Michael Gove is still in the race. Pensions Minister Stephen Crabb, however, decided to withdraw after coming in second to last with 34 votes and has since given his backing to Theresa May. With the next round of voting set to take place on Thursday, Conservative MPs will continue to cast their ballots until 2 candidates remain and will then have to choose one to lead the party and the country. The winner is due to be named on September 9th.
That report from Laurent Berstecker. And in another leadership battle across the Atlantic this time, 2 rivals have now become teammates. President Obama has taken to a stage in North Carolina in his first joint appearance with Democrat presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. It's been 8 years since Clinton campaigned for Obama before the election that brought him the presidency, and now Obama is repaying the favour, urging crowds at a campaign rally to vote for Clinton, who he hopes will preserve his legacy. Nick Rushworth has more.
He led the chants, making it clear he's ready to pass the baton. Hillary, he said, is the one to trust.
I believe in Hillary Clinton. And I want you to help elect her to be the next president of the United States of America. That's why I'm here.
I feel very privileged because
this was Obama's first campaign stump speech for Clinton. It was a show of Democratic Party unity and an opportunity to have a dig at their Republican rival, Donald Trump.
Hard-fought primary.
Everybody can tweet, but nobody actually knows what it takes to do the job until you sat behind the desk.
Obama was returning to North Carolina, a swing state that helped elect him in 2008.
It's very important for him to come back home in a sense to North Carolina, and also to show the minority voters that, he's still working hard on our behalf, and for all of us to come together and support Hillary.
God bless you, North Carolina.
Obama's energetic support for Hillary Clinton adds to a crucial announcement that could have a huge impact on the presidential race. The FBI is saying it will not recommend charges against her for using her private email to handle classified information. It says she was extremely careless, but no reasonable prosecutor would bring a case.
And as Nick mentioned in that report, the FBI has announced it won't be recommending criminal charges against Hillary Clinton over her use of private email while she was Secretary of State. That decision comes despite more than 100 emails it found containing classified information, which directly contradicts Clinton's claim she never sent classified emails using her personal account. Now, the decision hasn't gone down well with Republican presidential hopeful Donald Trump.
Today is the best evidence ever that we've seen that our system is absolutely, totally rigged. She sent vast amounts of classified information, including information classified as top secret. Top secret. Okay? And this is where they said that she was extremely careless. And frankly, I say, grossly incompetent. She will be such a lousy president, folks.
Republican hopeful Donald Trump speaking there. And more than 6 Yemeni soldiers have been killed and dozens more wounded after 2 suicide bombers blew up their cars at a military base in the southern city of Aden. That's according to security sources. Now, in the immediate aftermath, militants have launched an attack on the soldiers inside the base. Military reinforcements are arriving and the battle is ongoing. More on that, of course, as we get it. Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius will find out how long he's going to be in prison in a few hours' time. The South African athlete was found guilty in December of murdering his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp in 2013, but his initial 5-year sentence was publicly condemned as too lenient. The prosecution has demanded at least 15 years. The judge's decision will rely on how much significance is given to Pistorius' disability. Now, for more on this, let's go live to Cape Town, where our correspondent Aisha Ismail has been following the trial. And Aisha, 15 years is the minimum penalty for murder in South Africa. How likely do you think it is that the judge will stick to this?
Well, yes, this 15 years is the minimum sentence for murder in South Africa. However, the judge does have the discretion to deviate from the sentence, and she would have to then find compelling evidence to deviate from this minimum sentence. And this could include his physical disability, his mental state, the fact that he has already served a year in prison. She would have to weigh up all this evidence to come to a conclusion. However, some of the legal experts that I spoke to yesterday said that it is highly unlikely that the judge will go ahead with a minimum sentence. And some of them were even, prepared to say that they think that it would definitely be a stiffer sentence to the 5 years. It won't be the non-custodial sentence that Oscar Pistorius' lawyers asked for, and they're saying that he could very well go to prison for 10 years.
And Aisha, the case has been through many a twist and turn already. So manslaughter, for example, being overturned into murder. What does this say about the South African justice system?
Well, clearly, the justice system works. The fact that this matter was taken on appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal, the judges found that the trial judge had erred in her judgment, and they sent it back to her for him to be resentenced. He was then found guilty of murder and not culpable homicide, which is also known as manslaughter. Also, civil society organizations were very pleased that the judge or that the judges found that the initial judge had erred, because they were saying that in a country where violence against women and children is so rife, the courts need to deal with these people more harshly, and that stiffer jail sentences must be imposed to act as a deterrent and to show that the courts will not take violence against women and children lightly. But of course, we'll have to wait until 9:30 this morning to find out just how many years and what the sentence will be, the sentence that will be imposed on Oscar Pistorius.
Aisha Ismail in Cape Town, thank you very much for that update on the Oscar Pistorius sentencing later today. Let's turn our attention now to the Euros, and the Euro 2016's surprise success story, Wales, is taking on Portugal in the competition's first semi-final in Lyon later this afternoon. The match will see the world's 2 most expensive footballers face off against each other. Gareth Bale and Cristiano Ronaldo both play for Spanish giants Real Madrid. Whoever comes out on top will have the opportunity to lead their country out at the Stade de France in the final on Sunday. Mark Thompson has more.
One cost €100 million, the other 94 million. After winning the Champions League together at club level for Real Madrid, the world's 2 most expensive footballers are now set to go head-to-head on the international stage. Welsh winger Gareth Bale says his team's Euro 2016 semi-final against Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal won't be decided by the 2 men alone.
It's not about two players. We know that. Everybody knows that. Really, it's about two nations in a semi-final. 11 men against 11 men. It's going to be a very difficult game. We know that.
Portugal go into the match as favourites. That's despite so far not winning a game in the competition within 90 minutes. Coach Fernando Santos says his team won't be underestimating a Welsh side that surprisingly knocked out Belgium in the last round.
Wales are a very good technical side. They're good at passing, control, movement. They don't play like other sides. We've been analysing them so we can come up with the right strategy to get the result we want.
Portugal lost out to Spain in the semi-finals of the last European Championships 4 years ago. While it's the first time Wales have ever got to the final four of any major international football tournament, the winner will take on either France or Germany, who play in the second semi-final in Marseille on Thursday.
Now, if you've always wanted to visit the beautiful chateaux of the Loire Valley here in Western France but haven't been able to, well, don't worry, Google has come to the rescue. It's signed a deal with 18 chateaux to create virtual tours of the ancient royal homes. Mary Colombel has all the details.
Digitising French history step by step. This Google employee is taking 360-degree pictures of the Château de Chambord, one of France's renowned castles in the Loire Valley. The internet giant has signed agreements with 18 chateaux in the region, the goal to create virtual tours. Google's Cultural Institute seeks to make the world's heritage accessible online to anyone and everyone.
The project is the fruit of a collaboration with cultural institutions all over the world, more than 1,000 today in more than 70 countries, and it's accessible online for free.
Thanks to Street View image capture technology, curious web users will also be able to take a virtual stroll in Chenonceau, Azay-le-Rideau, and 15 other of the national treasures in the Loire Valley. And there's an added bonus, as virtual visitors will be able to zoom in on the many paintings and tapestries that hang in the chateau's halls.
The art camera is a system that Google built to take ultra-high resolution images of fine art, what we call gigapixels. It works by taking a lot of very, very small pictures, very zoomed in, and then the system stitches them together so a person can zoom into the finest details, so that it would be just like going up and staring with your nose right next to the canvas.
In total, web users will have access to 46 virtual exhibitions featuring over 2,000 documents and works of art.
All that beautiful French culture just one click away. You're watching France 24. Let's give you a reminder of our headlines. Former British politicians braced for the Chilcot Report, a 12-volume result of 7 years of inquiry into the Iraq invasion of 2003. Fired up and ready to go, President Obama rallies support for Hillary Clinton, who the FBI have recommended sparing from criminal charges over her emails. And Paralympian Oscar Pistorius awaits sentencing later today. His 5-year prison term is expected to be increased by a judge in South Africa. Business news now, and Stephen Carroll is here in the studio. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Belle.
And the market's back in turmoil today. That's the latest fallout from the Brexit vote. Should we start with sterling sliding down?
Yes, we've had the pound slump again against the dollar in trading overnight in Asia. We've actually seen it hit its lowest level since 1985, not just since the referendum, but it's fallen to levels lower than what we've seen in recent weeks, down almost 1% against the dollar to just under $1.30. Now, it did actually hit $1.28 earlier. That is the lowest level since the 20th of June, 1985. Believe it or not. And you can see also slides to that figure on the right there is the value of the pound against the euro. Now, the fall has been fairly dramatic over the past 10 days of what's happened with sterling. We've seen, of course, that dramatic drop as the results of the vote came in. But it had been stabilising in recent days. We'd seen things sort of flatten out, but just again today we're seeing another fairly significant move in the value of sterling. The pound's now worth 15% less than it was just 10 days ago. For a major currency shift, that's enormous and not something that we see in any way on a regular basis.
And what do you think is behind this latest slump?
Well, it's all generally to do with the jitters following the Brexit vote, but this particular moment has been a sort of a firestorm that's centred around the commercial property sector in the UK. We've had three major commercial property funds in the UK actually tell their customers that they can no longer withdraw their money from those funds. These are funds that control some £9 billion worth of investment in commercial property, and the fear is they needed to stop investors taking their money out because they're afraid that if the amount in those funds is depleted, the funds will be forced to sell commercial property, causing a property crash in the UK. So in an effort to try and stop that domino effect happening, these funds have told customers you can't take your money out for now, and that in turn has caused more uncertainty, more panic on the markets in certain parts of the world. These fears compounded by comments from the Bank of England Governor Mark Carney, who spoke on Tuesday. He had warned that the risks around Brexit were starting to crystallise now, pointing particularly to commercial property as a key risk to the UK economy. He did, however, announce some measures to help boost bank lending in the UK. Of course, the Bank of England really has been at the centre of the efforts to try and stabilise the markets in the wake of the Brexit vote. Mark Carney very much leading the efforts there to calm fears on the markets.
And how is this affecting other parts of the world?
Well, as we've seen sterling slide, investors have been looking for somewhere else to put their money, and a lot of them have gone to the Japanese yen, and that's having an impact on Japanese markets in particular, because we have seen shares affected by this as well. On the Japanese markets today, the Nikkei in Tokyo down by more than 2%. It was down by almost 3% earlier, and Japanese exporters are really being hit hard by this, because as the Japanese yen gets stronger, that means that their exports become more expensive. That's really bad news, for example, car makers in Japan. Mazda, just one of the companies, their shares down 7% in Tokyo today. There's also a knock-on effect of the strengthening of the US dollar. That could have an impact on the world's biggest economy. This slide in sterling isn't over yet. We've had banks predicting it falling as low as $1.20. It's at $1.28 now, so we could well see more of this in the weeks and months to come.
And if we turn to Berlin now, which is hoping to pick up some of those Brexit spoils.
The German capital's been competing with London, among others, to become the European capital of startups. Now, the tech sector had until now preferred London, but the Brexit vote is opening up an opportunity for Berlin. Alexander Alcott has the story.
Berlin and London both vying to be named the Silicon Valley of Europe. In the latest study released last year, London had the advantage, although the German capital had the fastest growth. Berlin leaders feel Brexit will enable them to sprint ahead.
As regrettable as I find the British decision, it's also clear that this could create chances for Berlin that I, as the economy minister, should seize.
Once Brexit was announced, there was a scramble from cities like Paris, Frankfurt and Amsterdam to become Europe's new financial capital. Berlin may not be able to compete in this sector, but it has a lot to offer to new startups.
With the Brexit, London has more or less taken itself out of the race, and we do believe that over time the advantage of Berlin will grow and more tech startups will come to Berlin, will be founded here and will succeed here in comparison to London.
But some experts feel the pull of the EU is being overstated.
At the moment, a startup doesn't necessarily need to enjoy all the advantages of the EU. It enjoys a local advantage. And at some stage, it might need funding. But the funding process in today's world works through crowdfunding, it works through private equity, and that is available in London. It won't go away so swiftly.
While some have said the UK shot itself in the foot by voting out of the EU, there is still great uncertainty about how well it will compete in the race against its European counterparts.
Some more of today's business headlines for you now. Spain and Portugal could be the first Eurozone countries to be penalised for breaking EU budget rules. The Financial Times says the European Commission decided on Tuesday the two countries had failed to take effective action to reduce their budget deficits. The Commission's decision is expected to be formally adopted on Thursday, a move which could put Madrid and Lisbon in line for fines or suspension of EU funds. Silvio Berlusconi says he sold AC Milan Football Club to Chinese investors. The former Italian Prime Minister, who owns the team, announced the sale in remarks to local newspapers in Italy. He says the unnamed Chinese consortium will pay at least €400 million over the next 2 years. But other Italian media have cast doubt on if the deal has been finalised. And the most expensive tickets for the 2018 World Cup in Moscow will cost $1,100. That's an increase from $990 in 2014 in Rio. Organisers FIFA announced the ticket prices on Wednesday with an average increase of 16%. Russian residents, though, will be offered significant discounts.
And finally, from you, Stephen, we've got a first glimpse at the new €50 note.
Yes, of course, this is part of the whole range of new euro notes that the European Central Bank is revamping with more security features. Like the other notes, it's going to have a watermark of the Greek mythology figure Europa. Now, the €50 note is the most widely used of all euro banknotes and accounts for 45% of all euros in circulation. Now, this new designed note will be available from April of next year, and the production costs between 6 and 10 cents. So if you had managed to make your own, if that was legal, it would be much cheaper.
It certainly would. Stephen Carroll with the Business News there. Thank you very much for that. And that's it for this half of the show. But don't go anywhere, because we've got an exclusive report for you coming up in Focus after the break, direct from the front lines in Libya, where the National Unity Government is making gains in the fight against the Islamic State group.